to the part which is all about aggregated statistics. One more thing, with our tool, probably you have already noticed that we are grading panelists' quality. These are very good, perfect, good quality results, and so on. So let me just jump quickly and tell you a bit more about the data quality and the stops and the drop rates. So we can observe here that we are calculating data quality individually for every single panelist and then aggregating the data quality for the entire study. So in this case, we have a very good data quality, which basically is very good. And in case the quality is low or lower, then we can kind of like eliminate this panelist by simply ignoring the data from the list. The data quality is being calculated based on several different factors, including mostly based on the frequency rate of the webcam, but also percentage of the eye tracking data through the entire study length. These are probably the two most important metrics. Okay, let's jump to the heat maps panel. This is the aggregated heat maps data for all the panelists. We can see here the average viewing. Let me just, for instance, slide this down and see what was happening within the very first, let's say, 5 seconds of the test. So I'm interested in only first 5 seconds. And this is the heat map for only the first 5 seconds. This is for all 31 tests. Again, I can eliminate the very low quality data quality results by applying this filter. Apparently, there were no low quality data in this case. So let me just go back to the very first 5 seconds and see what was happening. So to see what was happening when it comes to the eye movement perspective, we do have 2 tabs here for 2 types of metrics, the gazes-based metrics and the fixation-based. I already covered this at the beginning. So again, I'm going to use the fixation-based metrics. And we can see metrics like average time to first fixation, which is basically the average time to first notice, average time spent, that's pretty self-explanatory, total amount of fixations, so let's say total amount of eye hits ratio, so how many panelists have noticed this area. The rest is also pretty important for more, let's say, psychological maybe reason. For instance, the first fixation duration can matter, whether something caught your attention. So in case a first fixation duration is longer than the average fixation duration, it means that the eye actually was interested in the product. So basically, there's a lot of different insights here, including information about clicks. So we also do have amount of clicks. In this case, there was just 1 click for this element. We can see also clicks on the, let's say, visual way. And the time to first click was 2.15 seconds. So let me test, since Avian Water was the one that was in our interest, let me create an area of interest right over here and see what were the metrics here. So we can see that 5 panelists have chosen the Avian Water, but again, that was only within the first 5 seconds. Let's give this test a bit more time. So within the entire test scope, the Avian got 11 clicks with the average time to first click 6.35 and the average first fixation 3.69. Only 35% of panelists have noticed this area. So that's also pretty interesting. It feels like this is pretty nice success rate for the Evian Water. We can also compare these results with the different waters. So let's say that these 3 are gathered as the Pereira water. We can see that in total, these 3 got around 77% ratio, and average time to first fixating on any type of Pereira water was 2.55, even though it only got 4 clicks. These are there's a lot of and plenty of different insights that can be taken out of eye tracking metrics, including, for instance, how fast the time between click versus time between noticing. It means like how sure people were to decide to purchase the product that they have already noticed. So whether they wanted to browse a bit more to look for something different, or they have just noticed the water that they really like, and there were no other questions whether to choose it or not. Going back to the left panel here, there's an option to see the heat maps for individuals, but there is also option to filter out panelists by different tags. I'm not sure if we do have tags set up right over here. oh yeah, there are some tags with called webinar 2. Let me add just one tag for my results here. And what I would like to show is that we can just apply these and filter out by tags, exposure numbers, male, female, gender, age, and so on and so on. So basically all types of filtering is happening. There's also the ability to see the heat map as a view map and as a fog view by changing the opacity and change the opacity of this of the image. So if in case the heat map is too dense, you don't have to. It's not that I'm playing with the data right now. I'm just maneuvering the visualization part. The data behind it is still the same. Apparently, webinar second. Analysts are not so focused on Evian water. They're rather focused on different products. That's just a thought. Okay, so that was the heat maps. I'm going to ignore the second question since it is very similar to the first one. We can right now jump to the video data analysis. So this is a video advertisement, and we can observe the K coefficient and the facial coding a bit more here, since to be honest, we don't see much of a facial movement when people are interacting with images, but when it comes to interactions with videos, this is a pretty common thing to see some facial coding in action. So not only the heat maps are matter here, but also we can see the graphs below, as mentioned previously, so we can see where the attention was captured the most. So in this case, that moment got the biggest span of attention, and that was actually the moment where it was this aha moment in the advertisement. So that's it means that it got a pretty decent amount of attention. When it comes to the area of interest analysis, so there's also the same heat map panel that allows you to maneuver with the time slider and see and select what was happening when it comes to the eye tracking data. So let's say that the bottle itself is going to be our area of interest. We can see all the metrics here, so total amount of gazes, ratio, clicks, and so on, for the same metrics as for image. Right now I'm on the gazes tab. We can always switch to fixations, so these numbers will probably change slightly, but basically again it's going to be held on the eye hits rather than the eye movements. Okay, so that was very briefly the video analysis. What else? So there was this option here to present one of these two pop-ups. That was an A/B test. Which pop-up is going to bring more attention? I'm going to open both of them in several tabs. So we can see that the heat maps are a bit different. Apparently here the good news is coming was capturing more attention when it comes to, let's say, the visual side. We can measure this obviously by creating an area of interest and see, let's say, what was the average time spent. In this case, 0.59 seconds. In this case, it was around 0.57. That was very similar. Fixations 22, in this case 33. Okay, that's pretty big difference. So that got much more fixations, and probably since it got more fixations, I would expect that the OK button or the X button, which were closing, were clicked a bit. It took more time to click the buttons. That's just a rough hypothesis, but let's see. So in this case, it got 11 clicks. The average time to first click was around 3.64, and average time to first fixation 2.2. In this case, there is a pretty significant difference. Again, the first time to first fixation was a second later. So this pop-up got a second more attention on the image, and the average time to first click was much 3.33 was very similar to the first one. You may think that it should not be lower than the average time to first click, but there were also the entire area was mapped to click. So also this button was mapped to click. So the average would need to be, as you can see, the clicking on this area was took a bit longer, around 4.28 seconds. And there were some cases as well here. Okay, so I've just switched to gazes to see how the heat map was shaping for both of them. Pretty nice, pretty easy test for pop-ups. Maybe let's just quickly jump into the I think the last one, or almost the last one. This is a website mockup. So what we were trying to see is, are people paying attention to the free dates? This calendar was presenting dates that were available. How many clicks how many clicks were here, and how many clicks were actually in the first area of interest. That was the book now call to action. And we can see that the average time to first click was around 8, and average time to first fixation was pretty fast. It was 4. Also, the logo type apparently was not really noticeable. Only 10% of people have noticed it. We can also see how it was shaped within the let's say first 5 seconds again here. So pretty obviously no one was able to scroll down here with that fast, but they were scrolling here. What's surprising me is that this image right over here on the right, it's not capturing any type of fixation, so any type of attention. So it feels like people are just ignoring this image at all. Let's see what's happening with the gazes. With the gazes, it's a bit different. Well, even though there is like all of them were noticing it, like 30 or almost 50% have noticed this image. Maybe a bit less, because the area of interest is corresponding with the text. Then the average time spent is really low. It's below a second. It's even below half of a second. That's also pretty interesting insight about this supporting images, whether to A/B test them or not. To choose something that matters. And the last one, I like this example because it shows that the context matters. Let me just change the visibility, the heat map opacity. Let's say that 0.19 and 0.19 right over here as well. So we can already see that the heat maps are much different. And again, there was 2 different contexts. The first one was to grade how long the visitor was away from home, and the second was to grade how old these people are. This heat map presents how old people were. The eye spots, the heat maps are very dense on people. Meanwhile, here the heat is also pretty intense on the walls. Looking at these paintings on the walls, perhaps something was, I don't know, capturing their attention that they wanted to grade. So this study is very often performed in several different hypotheses. There are several others, let's say, instructions or contexts here. I just chosen to provide these 2 as just to prove some point, to provide you with the context. Okay, I will go back right now to the presentation, and we are slowly going to wrap it up. I think that was